In the mid-1930s, the Japanese Army aviation was on the verge of serious modernization. Outdated biplanes were replaced by more modern machines capable of providing air superiority. It was during this period that Kawasaki, under the leadership of talented engineer Takeo Doi, began developing a fighter aircraft, which later received the designation Ki-10. This aircraft went down in history as one of the last biplanes in service with the Imperial Japanese Army and at the same time as an important stage in the transition to the monoplane scheme. Work on the project started in 1934. The designers understood that in order to meet the demands of the military, it was necessary to combine proven solutions with new technical ideas. The result was a classic biplane with an open cockpit, non-retractable tricycle landing gear, and tailplane. The fuselage was made according to the semi-monocoque scheme with an oval cross-section, and the power frame was assembled from welded metal elements. The skin was made of duralumin sheets, which were overlapped with a secret riveting. This approach made it possible to reduce aerodynamic drag by carefully filling and coating the joints with a thick layer of paint and varnish. The wings of the aircraft were a biplane box with different upper and lower wingspans. The upper wing was integral and attached to the fuselage on two-in-shaped struts, and the lower one consisted of a center section and two detachable consoles with a transverse view for degrees. This design provided good maneuverability, which was especially appreciated by the pilots. The power plant was made up of the Kawasaki Ha 9E engine, a 12-cylinder liquid-cooled engine with a capacity of 850 horsepower. A 3-bladed metal propeller was installed on the third prototype, which improved traction characteristics. The armament consisted of two synchronized 7.7mm Vickers machine guns located in the upper part of the fuselage between the engine and the cockpit. Each machine gun had 450 rounds of ammunition, and aiming was carried out through a telescopic sight that passed through the canopy of the cockpit. Fire control was integrated into the throttle lever, making piloting easier in combat. The first flight of the prototype took place in March 1935. During comparative tests with its competitor, the Nakajima Ki 11, the Ki-10 demonstrated excellent maneuverability, although it was slightly inferior to its opponent in terms of maximum speed. Military pilots who tested the machine noted its excellent rate of climb and predictable behavior at low altitudes. However, disadvantages were also revealed. Insufficient ground stability made it difficult to accurately aim and fire. These comments were taken into account when finalizing subsequent prototypes. On the third sample, a countersunk riveting was applied, and the aerodynamics were improved, and on the fourth, the transverse V of the wing was increased to increase stability. The production aircraft eventually became identical to the third prototype. Adoption took place in 1935. The aircraft received the official designation Army Aviation Fighter Type 95 according to the Japanese calendar, and the Ki-10 index was fixed in the design documentation. The Allies later assigned him the code name Peri Peri, and in the Soviet Air Force he appeared as the I-95. Serial production began in December 1935. The first modification, the Ki-10I, was produced until October 1937, during which time the Army received 300 vehicles. In October 1937, an improved version of the Ki-10E was introduced, which corrected many shortcomings. Improved maneuverability and track stability, improved equipment. Production continued until December 1938, and a total of about 588 aircraft were built. Combat use of the Ki-10 began in the spring of 1936. These machines formed the basis of the fighter aircraft of the Japanese Army in the period from 1936 to 1938. They were actively used in China during the Sino Japanese War, and also took part in the conflict on Khalkhin Gol. The aircraft were based on the islands of the metropolis in Korea, Taiwan, and in occupied Manchuria. In the battles, the Ki-10 was opposed by Chinese-American-made Curtiss Hawk E fighters. Despite the bravery of the Chinese pilots, the Japanese biplanes, thanks to their better maneuverability and pilot training, secured air supremacy. One of the biggest battles involving the Ki-10 took place on April 10 over Haifeng. 12 Japanese fighters, along with 3 of the latest Ki-27s, engaged in combat with 30 Chinese I-15 bis. According to official Japanese data, 24 Chinese aircraft were destroyed in that battle, although historians doubt these figures due to the traditional overestimation of the results. The Japanese lost 1 pilot in that battle, Lieutenant Fukuyama, who, being seriously wounded, managed to land the car, but bled to death. In 3 months of active combat, The Ki-10 squadrons claimed 86 aerial victories with the loss of 6 pilots. However, it should be borne in mind that such reports often contained exaggerations typical of the military propaganda of that time. By the beginning of the Pacific War, the Ki-10 was already considered obsolete. Its maximum speed and armament could not compete with the new monoplanes that appeared among potential opponents. Therefore, from 1940 to 1942, the aircraft were transferred to the air defense system of the rear areas. Some of the aircraft were transferred to flight schools, where they served as training aircraft until 1945. Worn-out hulls and outdated construction eventually led to the remaining Ki-10s being scrapped. Despite its relatively short combat career, the Ki-10 has left a significant mark on the history of Japanese aviation. It became the last biplane in service with the Imperial Army and at the same time an important technological bridge to more advanced monoplane fighters. The experience gained during its development and operation helped Kawasaki to develop new design solutions and prepare personnel for future projects. Pilots who mastered the Ki-10 later switched to more modern machines, such as the Ki-43 Hayabusa, already having a solid foundation of piloting and air combat skills. Today, not a single original copy of the Ki-10 has survived to this day. In museums, you can only see large-scale models and individual fragments reminiscent of that era. However, the history of this aircraft continues to live in the archives, photographs, and memoirs of those who stood at the origins of the development of Japanese military aviation on the eve of World War I. The Ki-10 is not just a page of technological progress, but also evidence of a time when aviation was rapidly changing, and each new aircraft became a step towards future victories and defeats on the celestial fronts.